Describe the student-supervisor relationship in one word and then tell us why that isn't quite right.
Mine's 2 words, but they're hyphenated.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to say one-sided. So I think students typically think when they start honours in particular that their supervisor is sort of the person that's going to drive their project and be responsible for their learning. But one of the key transitions is that they're no longer like that lecturer that stands in front of you and delivers everything. You sort of have to co-design with them your project throughout the year. So I think that's what I'd say. It's a very collaborative relationship rather than a hierarchical one-sided relationship.
Hello and welcome to the Honestly Honours podcast, a show where we discuss and demystify the MDHS Honours program. I'm Ryan Johansson, the Honours Coordinator, and today we're talking about the supervisor-student dynamic. What each side expects, what makes it work, what can go wrong, and how to navigate challenges. Because honours isn't just about research, it's about communication, feedback, and learning how to work professionally. We have 3 wonderful guests today, both students and staff here at Uni Melb. Let's get into it with a quick introduction, starting over here.
Hi, my name's Christine. I'm a coordinator of the Honours program at the Department of General Practice, and I'm also a supervisor. I've had decades in teaching and learning with students, and my love interest in research is the pharmacovigilance or the pharmacoepidemiology of medicinal cannabis.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Freddie?
Very interesting. Yes, my name is Freddie. And I did my project in investigating cytokines in mice and human osteoarthritis. I completed my honours year last year, and I'm glad to be back.
Excellent. Great to have you back.
My name is Meg, and I, like Christine, am a coordinator of honours, and I am the coordinator at the Department of Medical Biology, otherwise known as WEHI.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's wonderful to have you all here today. We're going to be talking about supervisor-student relationship. I've got some direct questions for each of you. I want to start, Christine, in the role of supervisor. What do you wish students understood about your role as a supervisor?
My role, what I would hope that they would understand about my role is that, again, as Meg said, it's an open relationship where it's a transfer of knowledge, not just from me to the student, but the student to me. So out of my history of teaching, I've gathered a whole lot of intel, not through reading a book, it's actually through learning from every interaction I've had with a student. So it's almost like, in one way, any relationship, it's a dynamic. It's never just one way. So that's really about the relationship.
Excellent. Thank you. That's a very good answer. Freddie, I'm going to turn to you in the student perspective. What did you expect from your supervisor before you started, and how did that match reality?
Right. What did I expect?
Like day one, what did you expect? And then what was the reality?
So I'd only met my supervisor once in the previous year, and then I went straight into it in February with like one checkup email just to confirm, hey, I am starting honours, right? I haven't really heard from you. But we started off after the orientation lecture, and I realized that he was kind of a core part of my department in my building. So I was really glad that I had these connections straight up, that I knew I had someone to talk to about expectations at what I'm doing day one. And then I guess it developed over time to some, it was pretty much a friend that I could talk to on a daily basis if I needed. I think he was a very special supervisor in the way that he operated. He was very much hands-on, where you could talk to him pretty much any hour of the day.
Midnight?
Oh, I mean, during the day, any hour, because his office door was always open, and you could always, even if he was in a meeting, he would, if appropriate, he would even take time to answer the quick question that you had. So it was great to have someone that was so understanding of especially starting off, where you had so many questions. You have millions of questions. You don't know how to do this. What am I doing? So that was very special.
Excellent. It's interesting to hear the development of that, and we'll dive into that a little bit later. Thank you. Meg, for you as a coordinator, what are some, or maybe perhaps the most common misunderstandings that you see between students and supervisors at the beginning of the year?
Great question. I think some of the most common misunderstandings stem from students, which is what I mentioned before, not understanding the vast array of expectations of their supervisors and how big their roles are. So I think they often might think that their supervisors can be more available, although it sounds like in your case, your supervisor was incredibly available. And the other common misconception is how quickly they will turn around work. So I get my students to write down how long they expect for feedback from their supervisor. And some of them believe it might come back in 1 to 2 days. And in some cases, it might be a week before the supervisor gets time to look at something. So I think those are mainly around time.
Around time.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's great, Meg, because when I talk to all my students and as a coordinator, the student cohort, I always say you need to establish rules of engagement because every supervisor has different rules of engagement. And then I always do a supervisor briefing and I assert to those supervisors, before you start, you need rules of engagement. For example, with every one of my students, the first thing I do is give them my phone number, because that's my rule of engagement. I prefer text. I like them to be able to access me if they urgently need me, because the phone is real-time communication. Email, it's always lagged time. However, when I do give them the number, I establish these rules of engagement. That is, please don't text me after 6 p.m. And if you've got any questions, understand that the weekend is my weekend and I may answer you on a Saturday night, but I might not be thinking about the question. I might be in the middle of dinner and I might give you an answer I regret on the Sunday morning. So it is best, it's to just establish these rules, and everyone has different ones.
And so what if you get a case where, as a student, you're like, I'm not quite sure what those rules were. There's a lot of information at the start of the year. How could a student go around clarifying those expectations around engagement?
Well, just reinforcing the message and knowing that those rules will be broken, but not be punitive. Say, actually just remember I told you that it's not that helpful to send me a text on a Saturday because you might not receive a message you want to hear.
But they could reach out to you and say, how should I, or when should I contact you best? Yeah, it's not going to be like, not this again kind of thing.
No, it's never judgmental because it's relationship building. Because if you can't build those relationships at the onset, you're spending a lot of time retrieving the relationship and energy, building it up again, when the student should be focusing on their assessment tasks. Because in the end, it's to get a piece of research out there for publication and disseminate knowledge around the globe.
That's right, yeah. Coming back then, that relationship, is it more like a boss, a mentor, a teacher, a collaborator? It's quite different in the honours year. How would you describe that relationship and how does it change?
Yeah, I think it is all of the above. And I think in an honours year, it really is a collaboration and it's a teacher-student relationship as well. So I think there is, we've talked about the supervisor imparting knowledge to the student. They have to impart a lot of their knowledge at this early phase. And it's not only discipline specific, but it's also how to operate in a professional working environment because it's their first opportunity to. So I think in comparison to graduate researchers, so PhD students, it's a lot more of a hands-on relationship in an honours year between the student and supervisor. And supervisors should expect to engage more.
Because it's a big leap. It's a very big leap from undergrad to honours.
Freddie, I just want to dive into that thing you touched on a bit earlier, is the change in that relationship. How did you experience that change over the year, and what were some things you noticed now with hindsight that happened differently at the end as opposed to the start?
Yeah, great question. From the early phase where you're learning all these new techniques and how to go approaching a lit review or this, that, I was thinking, my supervisor, he really has these 2 students, an honours student, and master's student, that he takes a lot of time to puts a lot of time into. Then I realized throughout later in the year that he actually has so many more commitments than just us. I really thought, okay, he's made all these samples, all these preparing of techniques for just us. But then I'm looking at all these meetings he has and all these committees he's in, all these things, but I don't see that behind the scenes. So I actually realized, wow, this he's really busy, and I didn't expect that. So it just made me so much more grateful that he did spend so much time with us. So I guess that relationship changed from being a direct supervisor to just a mentor as well as a teacher at the same time, like teaching how to approach the next stage of our writing or assessment. But yeah, we're just one person, one project out of the many he was tackling at the same time.
I've got a little comment for the before and after, the beginning of the year to the end. We always take this on the 3rd floor of the medical building. There's a skeleton in a glass cabinet. All the students and I stand up, line up in front of the skeleton. We take a photo, and we take exactly the same photo a year later at the end of the year.
Nice.
And it is amazing. We're all in exactly the same position, but our faces are so different.
Yeah.
And there's this warmth. And so we always put the photos together, and this was the beginning and this is the end. And that's a really lovely thing to do.
Shows the growth and the development in the relationship.
Yeah.
How important or how much time should students put into developing that relationship? I mean, you're going from, maybe it's perhaps my perspective of undergrad, it's learning material and understanding material, and now we've got to build a relationship. How much time should we spend on developing that at the beginning or throughout?
I think it's incredibly important to put the time into it, but I think doing it in a structured manner. So before you asked about, how should the student know how to communicate with their supervisor, being very explicit and direct, because supervisors, they don't need to try to read your mind. So for example, how do you want to communicate with me? Email, text, WhatsApp, ask those questions early. So I think being very planned and organised going into the meetings with your supervisor to get the most time out of them and build the rapport quickly.
And I always tell my students to give feedback via the email and map out what was discussed in the meeting and what the outcomes are. I also tell my students that they are to set up the Zoom meeting in Outlook so that it goes into my calendar. So they own that meeting, because often when you set up a Zoom and you own the meeting, if you can't go, then you've got to transfer ownership of the meeting. I want those students to own that meeting, so they always have to be there. So it's all those structures and the rules that actually make the student feel safe. If they do have those rules, they feel safe because they know what the expectations are.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I know the expectation. It provides a regular chance for them to bring things up. So I wanted to dive into talking about planning for that meeting. What would be some key tips that you would advise they plan for a meeting with their supervisor? You can't just rock up and go, hey,
Yeah, I talk to my students at the beginning of the year about the differences in ways you can conduct your meetings, because every supervisor is very different, and you have some that have very clear structure for a meeting and others that don't. But when you're in this early stage and you're trying to make sense of all of the things that are changing, I think the best thing is to always have an agenda of, what have I achieved in the last week? What are my priorities next week? What are my direct questions for my supervisor that you might collect through the week? My gel looked really funny. Do you have any idea why that happened? Or things like that where you don't have access to them immediately that you might want to save up. And then also ensuring that your data, if you've generated research data or your written work, is in a clear format, ready to go to show them. And remembering that they are thinking about 20 different projects. And so if you say, oh, my gel showed that the protein was there, they're going to be like, what gel, what protein? So having it with an outcome, this was my research, this was the product. I think just having all of those documents in place.
And also listing the resources they need. So the resources change over time. So I always saying to my students, tell me what you did, tell me what you need to do, how can I help you, and what resources. And that could be assistance in the lab. It could be librarian support for a literature review. It could be to do an in vivo course to support qualitative research, or to download Starter, which is a statistical R program. So I thought, so what resources do you need this week? Let's plan them, because they're never immediate. They take time to implement and put in place.
Sounds like it matches that old adage, as you get out what you put in.
Yeah.
I think in terms of preparing for a meeting. Freddie, what was your perspective or experience on those meetings with supervisors? Like, how did they run for you, and what did you think that worked really well, or any experience of when perhaps it didn't work so well for you?
Yeah, just like Meg said, I think it's really important to have done preparation for the meeting. Don't just go in empty-handed, because then the supervisor will deliver the exact same to you. They'll just have a couple comments, but then they can't work off much. They might have many projects going on. I have no idea what you're talking about, and they might have multiple students doing similar things. So I know a supervisor that even got confused sometimes at what the difference between the students were, because they were working on similar projects, but maybe they didn't clarify exactly what they were doing. So they need a little reminder, because they're so busy day to day. So I think presentation of what you've been doing, as you said, was very important as well. Listing out what you have found in a format that is very clear for them to see. I think, later in the year, I learned that it was very important for me to have finished the presentation of the data before I got into that meeting. Show them the graph, not the numbers, because it's hard for them to, in 1 second, figure out the trend in whatever data you're showing them. It's so important to show a visualization, showing that you have done the analysis of it, and that you've taken the time to present it in a clear way, rather than just come empty-handed, pretty much.
Can I build on that?
Yeah,
on the weekend, I was catching up with a good mate who's a lab head. And we were talking actually about managing meetings, and how, and I was asking him how he manages his meetings in the context of different things, and he said, it's really hard when students show up with an Excel spreadsheet of numbers, and they don't tell me the biological conclusion, because I can't immediately work out exactly what the experiment is and what I'm looking at. So I think that is really important.
So I think a phrase for that is a perfect elevator pitch. So I said, just give me 3 elevator pitches in a row, and I'm happy. And that will actually help them in their career. And when they're doing a media release or interviewed by... right?
When they're on the podcast, season 2.
It's that sweet spot where you just communicate the message. And it's not that easy to do an elevator pitch.
No, surprisingly difficult. And look, sometimes people have naturally different communication styles. So what would you suggest when you're at both ends, supervisor and student, they're trying to communicate, but it's just not feeling like it's landing as a student? What would you suggest would be a course of action on how to sort of get things back on track?
Number one, I would say taking notes of the meetings and making sure that you feed them back to the supervisor via email afterwards and say, is there anything I missed? Because then that enables both your verbal communication and a version of written communication where you can clarify. I also think that's the time that you come and see your coordinator.
Correct.
And you say, hey, I'm having this, I'm struggling to, make this work. Can you provide me some advice? And often I will get involved and have a chat with the student and the supervisor together, and we'll come up with some action items depending on exactly that. Everyone is different. I'm super aware that I'm a massive extrovert and I love chatting to people, but if you're really shy and you've got maybe you find the supervisor quite intimidating, it might be harder to communicate. So how can we alleviate that? Things like that is part of the coordinator role, I feel.
I absolutely agree, being a coordinator as well. But we also need to acknowledge that in multiple arrangements, there are 2 supervisors. So I work in a team, and my colleague often says, are you going to be bad cop or am I going to be bad cop? So we do bad cop, good cop. So if the student if they're not performing, one of us will be bad cops, like laying down the rules. and the other one of us will be good cop and like softening the message. So the student hears that it's not lost in translation, but it's softened by the bad cop, good cop role playing. And I think we naturally do that, you know.
So it sounds like it's on both ends then, supervisors adjust and students may need to adjust to find the communication that works, because I think you mentioned that, Meg, we're all different. We all communicate different ways, and sometimes there's a little bit of back and forth about getting the right system for us, you know, in that partnership.
And that's part of professional growth, because we are training these students to work in teams. And to grow as a worker, not as a person who manages groups of people.
Following on from that, and honours can be the first time that students receive, you know, really detailed feedback, critical feedback on their work. How can students learn to see feedback as growth rather than failure?
I always tell the students to read it and then sleep on it. And not do anything. Have the emotional reaction and let yourself feel it, and don't shy away from the fact that you might feel disappointed or upset at the way that the feedback is. But once you've gone away, have a sleep, come up, read it again, and then sit with your supervisor and you can go through it and think about what it is that they're actually trying to tell you. And remember, it's never personal. I think supervisors always want the best out of you, and they're providing feedback to enable your growth. They're not trying to cut you down. They are always your number one fan and supporter. So I think it's also reframing in your mind that their role is very much to grow you as a scientist, and that they want to provide this feedback to make you better, which is going to benefit you in the long run. But I also think it's okay to be emotional and have that reaction, because sometimes it is tough. I'll never forget the first lit review I wrote, and my postdoc sat me down and said, "This is so bad."
Oh, no.
And then he sat with me for an hour and a half that night and talked through every single reason why he wanted me to improve it. And I wrote something beautiful that I was so proud of. So it is that real learning experience, and it's okay. Yeah.
Well, I've got a little phrase that I say to students: your efforts and your outputs do not necessarily determine the outcome. You can't control how other people see your work. You might put in a lot of effort and a lot of work, like the skiers in Milan, but the outcome might not be what you want. So you might fall off the slope. So it's really working on what you can control, and what you can control is how you work with the outcome or the feedback and grow from it, which is exactly what you did, Meg. Your outcome of being told that this is a terrible review, you can't control that person's perception, but you actually learn from it and produce beautiful work, at the second tranche.
And also just going back to what you're saying about putting effort in, get feedback early is another thing I really recommend for my students, because you guys will agonize over every single word, every sentence, and you'll really, you do. Like, students want to produce something amazing, but if you're on the wrong track and you write 5,000 words like that, you've lost a lot of time. So I always say, do a paragraph or two, get some feedback from your supervisor, so that if your writing is not quite in the right scientific style yet, you get that feedback early and you don't sink so much time into something that maybe then you're going to have to rewrite entirely.
That's
Good point, yeah.
And the other thing is, I always tell my students, every Word document has to have EndNote on it from the onset, because the last thing you want to do halfway through the year when you've got a lit review is to start working on your references.
Catch up on all that, yeah.
So, and, do yourself a favour. I actually say when I present it, you will thank yourself if you put EndNote into the Word document on day one.
Really? Yeah.
Doing it for your future self.
Thank you. Thank yourself.
Freddie, did you have an experience there when the feedback came back and you thought, whoa, and you had to sort of do what Meg did and recalibrate a little bit? Or
it all
what was
sounds
your experience?
very familiar. Yeah, there's always times where you're thinking, especially in the start where I don't really know how to write in this style, or it's completely new to me. I would produce something that I think sounds like what I should be doing, and all of a sudden it's like, no, you got to rewrite the whole thing even sometimes. And I think you just got to be resilient in that sense. And you might realize that other students you work with may also be dealing with the same thing, so you're in the same boat. So it's important to talk to others, realize, okay, yeah, it's a growth moment. It's not something that they're trying to put you down as if your first effort, your first draft was never going to be good. Because it's always trying to be better, always trying to improve, because there's always room for improvement, of course. And they always want the best for you, of course. And some supervisors, they want to aim high. I heard of a story where this supervisor, who I don't think ended up being the supervisor at the end of the year, they switched around. But at the start, they were thinking, yeah, I think you can achieve a 96 WAM, like overall. And I was thinking, how is that going to happen? And she was a bit scared, the student, because she was wondering, I guess I gotta be here every hour of the day, maybe 9 to 9 sometimes. But I think at the end of the day, you just gotta work on what you can do, what more can you do, and take all the feedback you can get from the supervisor. How can you improve?
When you said aim high, I thought you were going to say the supervisor wanted it to be published in Nature.
Yeah.
Because I say to my students, so what journal do you want to publish this in?
Right.
Right. So they're even thinking about where this research will sit when it's disseminated.
Yeah, that's great.
And we work out where it's positioned.
Go. Thinking of the next step.
Next steps.
Yeah.
I've never gone to Nature though.
Not yet. There's still
Not yet.
time.
Yeah, of course.
There's still time. A couple more questions here. What do supervisors get out of the relationship that maybe students don't think about?
I think some supervisors just genuinely love mentoring students and helping them grow, right? Like that's why I love my job, is because I get to watch a cohort go from quite anxious, quite like, what am I walking into? And then by the end of the year, take that final photo or go to those final oral presentations and see the well-rounded scientists that they've become. And I think that's incredibly rewarding.
And you feel proud of them. You're invested in the students. I also think it's great because you're getting to know interesting people. It's a relationship. And it's it's additive to you as a human being, because every interaction, we're having an interaction today, and this is added to who I am as a person.
Did you get that two-way feeling, Freddie, as well?
Yeah, I guess there's definitely early on, my supervisor was always referring to this time or that time with their previous honours students and how they grew and how they developed their communication style or their teaching style. All these things led to where I was and how he delivered this knowledge to me. So it was important to see, he had this student, how they grew, where they are now as well. He also told me about, this is where my student is at. This is where you could be. How can you reach your goal? Working with me to see where that all fits in. Yeah.
I think the nicest thing, so last year was my first year of a full honours cohort as coordinator, and I've kept in contact with most of the students, and they'll send me little life updates via email every couple of months, and
amazing.
I love it. I'm like, so cool to see where you've ended up, on the other side of the world, or where they end up. So I think that's also cool. And in the future, you just never know when you're going to run into them, and you might run into them in a professional context again.
So true. I mean, we're all on a journey together, in a sense, aren't we? Students and supervisors and coordinators going through that together. Fantastic insights today. Thank you very much. We're going to turn now to our mailbag time. We have some questions sent in from commencing students. We're going to pick one out, see what we get. Now, I like to say this is the no thinking, just talking section. Just fire away what your first initial response is to this. Now, this one is from an anonymous student from an anonymous suburb. So it's double anonymous this time. The question they ask is how to make the most out of meetings with supervisors. What's a top tip? How to make the most of a meeting with supervisors?
My strategy to get to know students is ask them what they're having for dinner tonight And if they tell me what they're having for dinner, that's one benefit of that meeting, because I can get to know, I get an idea of who they are as a person, what food they like, where they're going in the evening, whether it's a birthday, whether they're seeing their nonnas, whether it's Ramadan. And so at the end of every single one of my meetings, I say, so what are you having for dinner tonight?
Add a personal touch to the meeting.
I do.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah,
I do.
yeah. Excellent.
So, that's, and of course, underpinning it is pedagogy and transfer of knowledge, and
there's another dimension there when you get into that side
so
of it.
it's an easy way to really get to know the students without invading their privacy. Because if they don't want to tell you, they just say, no, I don't know.
Freddie.
Yeah, I guess similarly to what we've already talked about, I would say come with questions. Come with as many questions as you can, whatever you're thinking of, whether they're small ones, big ones. I had a notepad, and sometimes when a meeting would come around, it would have been maybe a few days since the last one, and I would have maybe like 100 questions, like so many questions, and you just go through them. He would take the time to listen, even if I've repeated this from last week or if it sounds stupid, he would still take the time to give a good answer. So I think questioning it, being inquisitive, that's very important.
And do you ask your supervisor what they're having for dinner?
I always see like what he would have for lunch and all that, so that's always very
and you get to know
interesting.
them.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. Meg.
I think knowing the purpose, right? So just knowing what your purpose is going into that meeting. One week it might be troubleshooting something in the lab. Another week it might be understanding where you're going to be moving next with your experiments. But if you've got a clear purpose in mind, then your meeting will be much easier to manage. And I think ensuring that you save the last 5 or 10 minutes of the meeting to wrap up. Okay, so just to clarify with the supervisor, okay, so just checking in, these are the things that I'm going to do next. Are you happy with this? And then that way you sort of always know where you're going.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So nothing's lost in translation.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Look, thank you so much, all of you, for your time today. I think it's been a great episode, lots of great insights there. If I was to take some things as takeaways, it's a relationship. You've got to build it. Spend some time to build the relationship with your supervisor. It's going to change during the year as well. Plan. Be ready for those meetings. Have questions. Have context. Have purpose. Have graphs. Lovely. I love a colourful graph. Yeah. And journey together. Supervisors are there because they want to be there. They love seeing people grow.
Yeah, they do.
And we're all going on a process of growing each year. As a student, there's a new relationship with that supervisor. That supervisor's growing and learning. And as Freddie pointed out, that they can reflect on that with their future students.
And also undertaking impactful research.
Exactly.
Which is so important. And we are in the Faculty of Medicine, Dentistry and Health Science. So impactful research to help community stay healthy.
The bigger purpose of it all.
It
End of the
is.
day,
It is. And that's really embedding the gravitas that this is really about benefiting people and it needs to be impactful. I try to get my students to understand that it's great to have a WAM and an assignment, but let's get this out. Let's translate it so that it can be embedded in policy and in practice.
Beautiful.
So
I think
a nice way to finish.
That's a lovely sentiment to wrap it up with. Thank you.
Without the, what are you having for dinner tonight, Ryan? Question.
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't know. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm having chicken schnitzel.
Lovely. Well, if you're having chicken schnitzel, I hope you enjoy it. Next time is episode 4, The Stepping Stone. We will be talking with some students who have gone from the honours program into a PhD.